I moved into the Briarwood building because it was cheap and close to the bus line. That's the whole reason. It wasn't some brave choice. I wasn't chasing a thrill. I was tired of spending half my paycheck on a room where the landlord pretended he didn't know the ceiling leaked. Briarwood was old but solid. The brick looked like it had been scrubbed too many times. The lobby smelled like mop water and old mail. There was a little brass plaque by the door that still said luxury suites, like a joke nobody wanted to take down. The first week I lived there, I noticed how quiet it was. Not peaceful quiet, more like everybody was holding their breath. Doors shut gently. People kept their voices low in the hall. When you rode the elevator with someone, they stared at the numbers like they were afraid of being asked a question. I tried to tell myself it was just the kind of place where people minded their own business. That was fine by me. The third day I met Rose from 4B while I was wrestling a box of dishes through the hallway. "You're the new one," she said. She was maybe in her late 60s, small and neat, with a stiff gray bun. She had on a sweatshirt that said Lake Day, even though it was cold out. "Yeah," I said. "I'm in 3C. Her eyes flicked to my door like she didn't like the number. "Don't prop it open," she said. "What?" "Your door. Don't leave it cracked while you unload. Lock it. Even if you're just turning around." I laughed because that's what you do when someone comes at you like that. "Is the neighborhood that bad?" "It's the building," she said. Her face didn't move. "The neighborhood's fine." Then she turned and walked away, her slippers whispering on the carpet. I stood there with the box cutting into my arms and tried not to feel stupid. That night I went down to the laundry room with a basket of clothes and a handful of quarters. The laundry room was in the basement. The basement hallway was narrow and painted an ugly green. There were posters about recycling taped up crooked. One of the fluorescent lights above flickered like it was losing a fight. I pushed open the laundry room door and got hit with a warm, damp smell. There were 4 washers, 4 dryers, and a folding table with a big burn mark in the middle. The room was empty. It felt like it was waiting. While I loaded my clothes, I heard a sound on the other side of the door. Not footsteps. Something like a slow scrape, like someone dragging a broom. I froze, hand on a damp sock. The scrape stopped. I waited. Nothing. I told myself it was a pipe settling. Old buildings do that. I shut the washer lid and fed the machine quarters. When I turned around, the folding table was covered in little dark specks. I leaned closer. They were dead gnats stuck to the surface like pepper. I don't know why that bothered me. It just did. I went upstairs and set a timer on my phone. When I came back down to switch the laundry, the room was still empty, but the door to the basement hallway was open. I didn't remember leaving it open. I pushed it shut and told myself to stop being dramatic. 2 weeks into living there, the first person died. That's not true. People had died before. I knew that from the way the tenants acted and from the way Rose had looked at my apartment number. But this was the first one while I was there. His name was Mike. He lived on the 2nd floor. I didn't know him well. I'd seen him outside smoking, leaning against the brick with his hands shoved into the pockets of his hoodie. He was a big guy with a shaved head. He always nodded like he was trying to be polite but didn't want to talk. One morning on my way to work, I saw 2 cops at the front door. A paramedic was standing with them, holding a bag that looked too light. A woman in pajama pants was crying in the lobby. Her voice came out in these short bursts like she couldn't get enough air. I stopped at the edge of the lobby, not sure if I should walk through. Rose was there too. She stood by the mailboxes with her arms folded, face tight. "What happened?" I asked her, because I guess I thought she was the kind of person who always knew. She looked at me like I'd stepped on her foot. "Mike," she said. "What about him?" Her mouth pressed into a line. "They found him in his tub," she said. "He wasn't drowning. There wasn't water." I waited for her to say more, like maybe he'd had a heart attack or slipped. She didn't. "How did he?" Rose leaned closer and her voice dropped. "Something got him," she said. I wanted to roll my eyes. I wanted to say, "Come on." But she wasn't acting like she wanted attention. She looked angry, like the death was an insult. I nodded and went out into the cold air. The police stayed for hours. People went in and out of the lobby pretending they weren't looking. The elevator ran more than usual. At noon, there was a man in a dark suit who didn't live there. He carried a clipboard and wore gloves. By that night, the building was quieter than it had ever been. I worked at a small print shop across town. It wasn't glamorous. I printed flyers, brochures, banners. I ran machines that hummed and shook. Most days I came home with ink on my fingers. My coworker Tyler was the kind of guy who could talk to anybody. He was 25, always smiling, always telling jokes that weren't that funny. He had a tattoo of a cartoon skull on his forearm. "You're looking rough," he said to me the day after Mike died. "I didn't sleep much," I said. "New place?" "Yeah." "Haunted?" I laughed because he was messing with me. "Just weird," I said. He leaned on the counter and lowered his voice like we were sharing a secret. "My cousin used to live near that building," he said. "Briarwood. That one?" I felt a little jolt. "Yeah. How'd you know?" He pointed at my hands. I still had my keychain clipped to my belt loop. The brass tag had the building name stamped into it. "Oh," I said. Tyler nodded slowly. "They called it the Long Neck Lady," he said. I stared at him. "You're messing with me." "I'm not," he said. "Or I mean, I didn't make up the story. People talk. They said there was a woman who used to live there. She killed people. Or she died there. Depends who you ask." I felt my stomach tighten. "What kind of story is that?" He shrugged. "Urban legend," he said. "She'd show up in the hallway, and her neck would stretch out like a giraffe, like she could look over your shoulder from way down the hall." I forced myself to smirk. "That's stupid," I said. Tyler's smile faltered. "Yeah," he said. "It's stupid. But my cousin said a guy got found with his throat. You know." He lifted his hands and made a slicing motion. I didn't laugh this time. Tyler's eyes widened like he realized he'd gone too far. "Anyway," he said quickly, "it's just a story. Don't let it get in your head." But it was already in my head. That night I came home. The hallway outside my apartment smelled faintly like bleach. Someone had cleaned something, or tried to. I unlocked my door, stepped inside, and locked it behind me. I remembered what Rose had said about not propping it open, and my skin prickled. My apartment was a basic one-bedroom, beige carpet, cheap blinds, a kitchen that looked like it had been assembled from mismatched parts. I had a couch, a small table, a mattress on the floor. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I turned on the lights and tried to settle down. Around midnight, I heard someone in the hallway. Footsteps. Slow. Not heavy, but not careful either. Like someone was taking their time. I sat up on the couch, listening. The footsteps stopped outside my door. I stared at the doorknob. No knock. No jiggle. Just stillness. I held my breath without meaning to. After a long moment, the footsteps moved on. I let the air out and told myself it was a neighbor going to the bathroom or the stairs. I went to bed with my phone on the pillow next to me. The next day, I ran into a guy in the elevator who I'd never seen before. He was thin and pale with dark circles under his eyes. He smelled like cigarettes and something sour. He looked at me, then at the floor indicator, then back at me. "You live on 3?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. He swallowed. "You hear her?" he asked. My heart did a small, stupid jump. "Who?" I said, like I didn't know. He licked his lips. "The smiling one," he said. The elevator doors opened on my floor. I stepped out without answering. I didn't want to talk to him, but also I didn't want to be rude in case he was unstable. In places like Briarwood, you learn to keep interactions short. He got off at the same floor. I went toward my door. I could feel him behind me. "You gotta keep your drains closed," he said. "That's where she comes from. The pipes. My cousin." I turned. "Man," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "I'm just trying to go to work." He stopped. His eyes darted down the hallway like he expected someone to appear. "Just don't listen to her," he said. Then he shuffled into 3A and shut his door. All day at work. The phrase "the smiling one" stuck to my ribs. When I got home that evening, there was a new flyer taped near the elevator. Missing. A photo of a young woman with a bright smile. Brown hair, nose ring. The print was slightly warped, like it had been copied a few too many times. Her name was Danielle. She was last seen leaving a bar downtown. I studied the photo longer than I should have. Tyler wandered by in my mind, talking about a long-necked lady like it was a joke. I tore my eyes away and went into my apartment. Over the next week, the building felt like it was shrinking. The hallway lights seemed dimmer. The elevator took longer to arrive. At night, I kept hearing faint sounds that could have been anything. Water moving through pipes, a door opening, a distant cough. Once I woke up with the feeling that someone was staring at me. I sat up in the dark, heart pounding, and looked toward the window. The blinds were closed, but a thin strip at the edge let in a slice of streetlight. In that slice, I saw a shape. It looked like a face pressed close, pale and stretched, but I couldn't make out features. I blinked hard. The shape was gone. I got out of bed and checked the window. The blinds were still shut. The latch was still locked. My hands were shaking. I stood there for a long time before I went back to bed. A few days after that, I came home and found the building's front door propped open with a rock. I stopped on the sidewalk. I could see into the lobby. No one was there. Rose's words came back. Don't prop it open. I stepped inside anyway because where else was I going to go? The rock was a chunk of concrete, rough and dirty. Whoever put it there had done it on purpose. I kicked it away and pulled the door shut until it latched. On my way to the elevator, I noticed a smear on the lobby floor near the mailboxes. A dark streak that had been partly wiped, like someone had dragged something heavy. I stared at it too long. My mouth went dry. The smell in the lobby wasn't mop water anymore. It was something metallic, faint but real. I looked around, expecting to see police again, or at least neighbors whispering. Nothing. I got into the elevator and hit 3. When the doors opened, the hallway was empty. The air felt cold, like someone had left a window open somewhere. Halfway down the hall, I heard a sound from one of the apartments. Not a TV, not music. A low, wet, choking noise. I froze. The noise came again, followed by a muffled thump. It was coming from 3A. That was the guy from the elevator. My first instinct was to get inside my own apartment and lock the door. My second instinct was to call someone. My third instinct, the stupid one, was to help. I walked toward 3A. The sound stopped. I stood in front of his door, listening. All I could hear was my own breathing. I raised my hand to knock, then hesitated. I told myself, if someone's hurt, you'll regret walking away. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, harder. Still nothing. My pulse was in my throat. I pressed my ear to the door. At first there was silence. Then I heard a soft sound like someone shifting weight. A slow, careful movement. A voice came through the door, low and thin. Go away, it said. It didn't sound like the guy. It sounded like a woman trying to smile. My skin went cold. Are you okay? I asked. My voice sounded too loud. There was a pause. Then, from right against the door, I heard a small laugh. Not a normal laugh. It was dry, like it scraped. Don't open, the voice said. My hand dropped from the doorknob. I hadn't even realized I'd reached for it. I backed away. I walked to my apartment as fast as I could without running. I shut the door, locked it, and leaned against it, listening. For a long time, there was nothing. Then I heard the sound of a door opening down the hall. Footsteps. Slow. Light. I held my breath again. The footsteps stopped outside my door. I stared at the peephole. I didn't want to look. I forced myself. At first I saw nothing but the hallway carpet. Then something rose into view. Not a face at normal height. Not a person standing. It was a face coming up from low, as if someone were crouched and lifting their head. A woman's face. Her skin looked wrong. Not ghost white like in movies. More like paper that had gotten wet and dried. Gray in patches. The lips were stretched back in a smile so wide it made the corners crack. Her teeth were rotten, brown and jagged, some missing. The gums looked dark. Her eyes were open too wide and too still. And behind the face, where her neck should have been, there was nothing like a normal throat. Her neck was long and thin, like a cord. It extended down out of sight, bending as if it was jointed. The face tilted, curious, like she was trying to see through the peephole into me. I stepped back so fast I almost tripped. I didn't make a sound. I couldn't. From the other side of the door I heard her breathing, slow and wet, like she had mucus in her lungs. Then I heard something else, a soft scraping sound like nails brushing the door. I covered my mouth with my hand. After a moment, the breathing stopped. The scraping stopped. I stood there frozen until my legs started to ache. Finally, I heard her move away down the hallway. I waited until the sound faded. Then I grabbed my phone and called the non-emergency police line. My voice shook when I tried to explain. I didn't mention a long neck. I didn't mention rotten teeth. I said I heard someone being hurt in the apartment next door, and a woman's voice telling me to go away. They said they would send someone. They didn't show up for almost an hour. By then, I was sitting on my couch with every light on, feeling like I'd swallowed glass. When 2 officers finally came, they looked tired. They knocked on 3A. No answer. They tried again. One of them used a key from the building manager, who showed up in his slippers and a coat thrown over his pajamas. The door opened. The smell hit us first. It was the smell of blood and something else underneath. Something sweet and spoiled. The manager gagged and turned his head. One of the officers told me to stay back. I didn't listen. I couldn't. I stood in the doorway and looked. The apartment was small like mine. Same layout. Same cheap carpet. The living room was a mess. Furniture knocked over. A lamp on the floor, still plugged in, its bulb shattered. And on the carpet near the couch was the man from the elevator, or what was left that still looked like him. His throat was torn open, not cut clean, not a neat slice. It looked like something had grabbed him and pulled. The skin and muscle were ripped apart in uneven strips. The opening was wide enough that I could see the dark, wet inside of his neck. The blood had soaked into the carpet in a heavy black patch. His mouth was open like he'd tried to scream but couldn't. His eyes were staring up at the ceiling. His hands were up near his chest. His fingers were curled, stiff. I heard myself make a noise, like a little whine. I backed away and pressed my shoulder against the hallway wall. The officer swore under his breath. The other officer pulled a radio from his shoulder and started talking fast. The manager was pale. He kept saying, "Jesus, Jesus," like it was all he had. I looked past the body into the open bathroom. The tub was empty. The curtain was pulled halfway aside. The shower head dripped slowly. There was a smear of blood on the tile, like a hand had slid along it. On the mirror above the sink, something had been written with a finger. It wasn't words. It was a curved line, a big smile, and a row of little marks under it like teeth. My stomach turned. The officer stepped in front of me. "That's enough," he said. I stumbled back to my apartment. I shut the door and slid down to sit on the floor. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I just sat there and listened to the commotion in the hall. Doors opened and shut. Voices murmured. Someone vomited somewhere down the corridor. When it finally got quiet, it was after dark. I didn't sleep. In the early morning, I heard Rose's door open across the hall. Her slippers padded softly. A minute later, there was a knock on my door. I didn't move. The knock came again, gentle. "It's me," Rose said. I got up, legs stiff, and went to the door. I looked through the peephole. Rose stood there, alone. I opened the door a crack, chain still on. Rose's eyes flicked behind me into my apartment. "You saw her?" she said. I stared at her. "I don't know what I saw," I said. Rose's face was calm in a way that felt practiced. "She's back," Rose said. "Or she never left." My throat felt tight. "What is she?" I asked. Rose shook her head. "It doesn't matter what she is," she said. "It matters what she does. You keep your door locked. You keep your drains covered. You don't answer if you hear someone calling from the hall." I swallowed. "Why didn't you call the police?" I asked. "If you knew." Rose's eyes hardened. "They come," she said. "They look. They leave. Then someone else dies. And we're still here." I wanted to ask her how long this had been going on. I wanted to ask her what she meant by drains. But what came out was, "What about moving?" Rose's mouth twitched, not a smile. "Some of us can't," she said. "Some of us tried. She followed one man to his sister's house. Took his sister too." My blood went cold. "That's not possible," I said. Rose leaned closer. "Don't make her into a story," she said. "That's how people get careless." She tapped the chain on my door. "Get a better one," she said. Then she turned and walked away. I shut the door and leaned against it again. I went to the bathroom and stared at my sink. The drain was a dark hole. The metal ring around it was dull with old water spots. I turned on the faucet. Water ran down, swirling. For a second, the reflection in the water looked like a face. A stretched grin. I jerked back so hard I banged my hip on the counter. The reflection was just my own, warped by movement. I shut the faucet off. I found a glass and turned it upside down over the drain. Then I did the same for the tub. It felt ridiculous. It didn't feel ridiculous enough to stop. I called in sick to work. Tyler texted me asking if I was okay. I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. Around midday, I heard someone outside in the hallway. Not police, just a neighbor moving. I tried to relax. I tried to watch TV. I kept pausing it to listen. In the afternoon, there was a knock on my door. I froze. No one said anything. The knock came again. Light. I didn't move. After a moment, a man's voice spoke. "Maintenance," it said. I stared at the door. I hadn't put in a maintenance request. The voice came again. "Need to check your bathroom. Building issue." My hands were sweating. I didn't answer. The voice sighed. "Open up," it said, a little sharper. I backed away from the door. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. The doorknob turned. Just a small twist, like someone testing. Then it turned again, harder. The chain held. The door shuddered. I heard breathing on the other side, slow, wet. A soft laugh, and then a sound that made my skin crawl. A long, slow stretch, like cartilage pulling. The peephole darkened. Something moved across it. A pale shape, a neck, thin as a rope, rising upward. The face appeared, not at normal height, but higher, as if it was climbing. The neck kept going, lifting her head until her eyes were level with the peephole. Her smile was wider than before. Her teeth looked like they were dissolving in her mouth. She pressed closer. I could see the pores in her skin, little pits, cracks at the corners of her mouth. Her eyes didn't blink. The chain rattled. The door shook again, harder, as if someone yanked from the other side. I stumbled backward, grabbed the first thing I could reach, a heavy book from the coffee table, and held it like it would do something. The door stopped shaking. For a second, everything went quiet. Then, very softly, right against the door, her voice slid through. "I can smell you," she said. I covered my mouth. My eyes burned. The voice continued. "You're trying so hard," she said, like she thought it was funny. Little rules, little tricks. I didn't answer. I didn't even breathe. Another soft laugh. Then, in a voice that sounded almost normal, like a woman speaking through a mouthful of broken teeth, she said, "Open it." Something scraped along the door, slow, like a nail dragging. I heard it travel down, and then up, tracing the edge, like she was learning the shape of it. The peephole went dark again. Her face wasn't in it. I looked anyway, unable to stop myself. I saw her neck. It was stretched out down the hallway, long and thin, curving like a hose. At the end of it, her head was turned sideways, smiling straight into my door from a few feet away, as if she didn't need the peephole. She was standing at the far end of the hall now, by the stairs. Her body was small under a dark dress. Her neck was impossibly long, reaching back to my door like she'd thrown it. She tilted her head. Then she moved. Not walking. Her neck slid, pulling her head along the air like it was on a track. It flowed toward my door, smooth and steady. Her smile didn't change. I backed away until I hit the kitchen counter. My phone was on the couch. Too far. The head stopped just inches from my door, her cheek almost touching it. She inhaled, a long breath, like she was tasting the air. Then she whispered, soft enough that it almost sounded like my own thoughts. "You heard what I did to him," she said. I thought of the man in 3A. His throat. My vision blurred. Her whisper continued. "He begged," she said. A small pause. "He couldn't talk," she added, like that was the joke. My stomach clenched. I thought of Rose saying, "Don't answer if you hear someone calling from the hall." But she was right here. I didn't answer. Silence. Then the head jerked slightly, as if she'd heard something. Her eyes shifted down the hall. Her neck tightened. I heard a door open somewhere. A man's voice called out, irritated. "Hey, who's out there? You messing around?" It was coming from 3D. I'd seen 3D once. A young guy, headphones always on. His door opened wider. I heard him step into the hallway. The woman's head turned toward him. Her neck snapped in that direction so fast it made a sound like a belt being pulled. I couldn't see him, but I heard his footsteps stop. "What the?" he started. Then there was a wet crunch, a sudden scream, cut off, a heavy thud. My hands flew to my mouth again. Through my apartment door, I heard dragging, something scraping across carpet, a low sound like someone chewing with their mouth open. I started to shake so hard my knees knocked against the cabinet. I wanted to run. There was nowhere to go. I pressed my ear to the wall. The sounds were close, right outside. There was another wet tear, like fabric ripping. A gurgle, then silence. A few seconds later, I heard the slow scrape again, like something being pulled away. I looked back at my door. The peephole was clear. No pale face, no stretched neck. Just the hallway carpet. I stood there, frozen, for a long time. Eventually, I forced myself to move. I picked up my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. When the dispatcher answered, my voice came out thin. "There's someone in the hallway," I said. "Someone's hurt." I wanted to say more. I couldn't. She asked questions. I gave half answers. My mind kept replaying the crunch, the scream. I stayed on the line until I heard sirens in the distance. Then I hung up and sat on the floor with my back against the couch. Outside, the building went quiet again. Not peaceful. Breath-holding quiet. When the police finally came up to the 3rd floor, I didn't open my door. I listened as they knocked on 3D. I listened as they called out. I listened as they forced the door. I heard one officer swear. I heard another one vomiting. I heard someone say, "Jesus Christ," in a voice that sounded like it had cracked. Then I heard them moving down the hall, toward my door. A knock. "Sir," an officer called. "We need you to open up." I didn't move. The officer knocked again. "Sir, we spoke earlier. We need to take a statement." My throat was dry. I wanted to open. I wanted to hide behind the fact that they were here. But Rose's words rang in my head. They come. They look. They leave. And I could still smell her, even through my door. Not perfume, not rot. Something like old damp paper and iron. I stayed silent. The officer sighed. "Okay," he said. "We'll be back." Their footsteps moved away. After they left, I sat there with the lights on until my eyes ached. When the building finally settled into evening, I forced myself to stand. I walked to the bathroom. The upside-down glasses were still covering the drains. I stared at them. I bent down and put my ear close to the sink. At first, nothing. Then faintly from deep in the pipes, I heard a sound, Not water, not a drip. A soft scrape, a little laugh, and a whisper so quiet I could barely catch it. "Not here," it said. I backed away from the sink. My legs almost gave out. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a knife, not because I thought it would help, but because holding nothing felt worse. I stood in my living room staring at my front door. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what she wanted. But I knew one thing. She wasn't finished with the third floor. And I was on the third floor. I kept the knife in my hand until my wrist cramped. When the sun came up, it didn't make anything better. It just showed the same room in a different light. Same cheap blinds. Same marks on the wall from where I'd moved the couch. Same upside-down glasses over the drains like I was a kid playing pretend. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to think like a normal person. Call in sick again. Pack a bag. Leave. That was the obvious answer. But every time I pictured unlocking my door and walking into the hallway, I saw that face rising into view, the smile splitting wider than it should. I heard the sound her neck made when it stretched, like something inside her was getting pulled tight. I didn't want to be stuck in my apartment, but stepping out felt like stepping into a trap. Around mid-morning, someone knocked again. Not a polite knock. Firm. "Police," a man's voice said. I looked through the peephole. 2 officers this time, plus a man in a suit behind them. The suit had a badge clipped to his belt and a tired look, like he'd already spent all his patience somewhere else. I didn't want to open the door. I also didn't want them kicking it in. I slid the chain off and opened it. The suited guy held up his badge. "Detective Harris." He said it quick, like it was the same conversation over and over. "We need to talk," he said. I nodded. My mouth was dry. He looked past me into my apartment. "You alone?" "Yeah." "You heard what happened last night?" I stared at the hallway carpet. "I called it in," I said. "I know." His voice was flat. He wasn't trying to scare me. He wasn't trying to comfort me either. One of the officers behind him shifted his weight, hand resting near his holster. Harris took out a small notebook. "Tell me what you saw," he said. I thought about telling him the truth. I thought about saying, "A woman with a neck that stretched down the hallway like a rope, and teeth like rot." I imagined his face. I imagined the look I would get from the officers. I pictured them taking notes anyway, but in the way you take notes about a drunk man's rambling. So I did what I'd already done on the phone. I gave the version that sounded possible. "I heard something in the hall," I said. "A scream. Then it stopped. I didn't open my door." "You didn't look out?" "I looked through the peephole after. I didn't see anyone." He watched me. "You called twice," he said. "Once about your neighbor, once about the guy across." "Yeah." "Your neighbor in 3A, Harris said. "You talked to him before?" "A couple times. Not really." "You hear anyone else in his apartment that night?" I swallowed. "I heard a woman's voice," I said. The officer on the left lifted his eyebrows. Harris didn't react. "Describe it," he said. It was close to the door, I said. She told me to go away. Harris wrote something. Did you see her? I hesitated. If I said no, I was lying. If I said yes, I had to explain. I landed in the middle. I saw a face, I said. Harris looked up. A face where? In the peephole. What did it look like? My throat tightened. Like a woman, I said, but sick, gray, smiling. Harris's pen paused. Smiling how? Wide, I said. He wrote again. One more thing, he said. Last night we found your neighbor in 3D. His throat was... He cleared his throat, like he didn't like repeating it. His throat was damaged. Same kind of damage as 3A. I didn't answer. Harris watched me for another second. Did you see anyone in the hallway later? I thought of the head snapping toward 3D, the wet crunch. No, I said. I stayed inside. Harris nodded like he already expected that. We're going to have officers in the building for a while, he said. If you hear anything, call 911 immediately. Don't try to investigate. He said it like a warning you give a child. I nodded again. He closed his notebook. If you remember anything else, he said, anything at all, call me. He handed me a card. I took it. As they turned to go, I noticed something on the back of one officer's neck. A thin red line, fresh, like a scratch. I stared at it. The officer noticed and pulled his collar up a little. They walked away down the hall. I shut my door and locked it. I stood there holding the detective's card like it was proof that somebody official had stepped into my nightmare. It didn't feel like proof of anything. I tried to pack. I put clothes into a backpack. I threw in my laptop, my charger, my wallet. I shoved my bathroom stuff into a grocery bag. I didn't know where I would go. A hotel, maybe. A friend, if I could think of one who wouldn't ask too many questions. Tyler was the only person I could think of who would show up without judging me. I texted him. Can you pick me up from my building? Something bad happened. I need to get out. My finger hovered over send. I thought about Rose saying she followed a man to his sister's house. I thought about the way the woman's head snapped toward 3D like she'd been waiting for a reason. If I brought Tyler here, was I putting him in it? I deleted the message. I sat on the floor in the middle of my half-packed life and felt my stomach roll. There was a sound from the bathroom, a tiny clink, like glass shifting. I froze. I stared toward the bathroom doorway. Nothing moved. I stood up and walked to the sink. The upside-down glass was still there. I crouched and listened. At first, just the normal hush of pipes. Then a soft scrape, deeper in, like something dragging along metal. I backed away. My hands were shaking. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a roll of duct tape from a drawer. I didn't know why I had duct tape. I'd bought it once for a stupid craft project. I taped the glasses down over the sink and tub drains. Not neatly. I wrapped tape around like a desperate person. Then I taped the overflow drain in the tub. I taped the little gap around the bathroom fan. It made me feel stupid again. but it also made me feel like I was doing something. When I finished, my apartment smelled like adhesive. I sat on the couch and stared at my front door. I waited for a knock. It didn't come. Hours passed. I heard movement in the hallway now and then. Voices, radios. The building was crawling with police. And still, every so often, I caught that faint smell again. Damp paper, iron. By late afternoon, I couldn't stand it. I needed air. I needed to leave. I checked the peephole. The hallway was empty. I opened my door, stepped out, and locked it behind me. My backpack dug into my shoulders. The carpet in the hallway looked darker than usual, like it had been walked on by too many shoes and too much fear. I walked toward the elevator. The whole time I expected to hear that stretch sound. Nothing. I pressed the elevator button. The light came on. The elevator took longer than it should. When it finally arrived, the door slid open and I stepped in. It smelled like old cologne and stale air. I hit the lobby button. The doors started to close. Right before they shut, a hand slipped in. The doors opened again. Rose stepped inside. She had a grocery bag in one hand and her keys in the other. She looked at my backpack. "Going somewhere?" she said. "Yeah," I said. I tried to keep my voice steady. "I'm leaving." Rose's eyes flicked to the ceiling of the elevator, like she didn't trust it. "Not like this," she said. "What do you mean?" The elevator jerked as it started to descend. Rose stood very still. "You can't just walk out," she said. "Why not? There are cops here. They're everywhere." Rose's mouth tightened. "They won't stop her," she said. "Then who will?" Rose looked at me. "Someone who isn't pretending it's a person," she said. My skin prickled. The elevator passed the second floor. A dull thump echoed through the shaft, like someone had hit the wall from inside. Rose didn't flinch. "They told me you opened your door last night," she said. "I didn't," I lied. Rose stared at me. I didn't look away. The elevator dropped to the lobby. The doors opened. The lobby was crowded. 2 officers near the front door. A couple of tenants sitting on the chairs by the mailboxes like they were waiting for a doctor. The manager behind the desk looked like he hadn't slept. Rose stepped out. I followed. Rose turned toward the basement stairwell. "Where are you going?" I asked. Rose didn't slow down. "Down," she said. "I'm leaving." Rose stopped and faced me. "You can," she said, "but you'll carry the sound with you. You'll keep listening in every room you sleep in, and you'll always wonder if the next knock is real." I didn't answer. Rose leaned closer. "She's hunting on this floor," she said. "She's waking up because she's getting fed. If you leave her here, she'll keep feeding. If you bring her attention with you, she'll follow the scent." I stared at her. "You said she followed someone before," I said. Rose nodded once. "So why are you still here?" I asked. Rose's eyes hardened. "Because I'm old," she said. "And because I remember the first time." I waited. Rose looked past me, toward the front door, toward the world outside. "They called her Lillian," she said. Not long neck, not smiling one. Lillian. My stomach tightened. You knew her? Rose nodded slow. She lived in 1F, she said. Back when the building still had carpet that wasn't stained. Back when people left their doors unlocked. Rose's voice didn't go soft with nostalgia. It stayed sharp. She was quiet, Rose said. She worked nights at the hospital. Cleaning staff, not a nurse. Nobody paid attention. She smiled at people, held doors, all that. Rose's eyes flicked up to my throat. And then people started showing up with their necks ruined, she said. A shiver ran through me. Police thought it was a man, she continued. They always think that. They made the rounds, asked questions, left. I swallowed. What happened? Rose's mouth tightened. Lillian got caught, she said. Not by police, by a tenant. A woman came home early, walked in on her in the hallway. Rose's gaze slid away for a second, like she could still see it. She didn't have that neck yet, Rose said. Not like now, but she had something wrong in her throat. She'd had surgery as a kid, scar tissue. She could move her head in ways that didn't look right. I didn't know what to do with that, Rose continued. The tenant screamed. Lillian grabbed her. She bit into her throat and wouldn't let go. Rose said it like it was a fact from a report, but her voice shook at the end. They pulled her off, Rose said. 3 men. She fought like a dog. Somebody hit her with a fire extinguisher. She dropped, and when she hit the floor, her neck made a sound like snapping. I felt sick. They arrested her, Rose said. They took her away. They told the building it was over. Rose looked at me. Then she came back, she said. How? Rose shrugged, small. She died, she said. In jail, in a hospital, in a van. People tell different versions. The only thing I know is that after she died, the first body showed up in the building again. Rose's eyes were flat. And over the years she got worse, she said. Longer, smarter, like something kept stretching her out. My mouth was dry. You think she's a ghost? I said. Rose shook her head. I think she's Lillian, she said. And I think she's hungry. That's enough. A man across the lobby laughed at something an officer said. It sounded wrong in this building, like a joke at a funeral. Rose grabbed my sleeve. You want to leave? She said. Yes, I said. Then help me stop her, she said. My heart hammered. How? Rose looked at the basement stairwell again. We have to close her off, she said. She uses the walls, the pipes, the shafts. I thought of the sink whispering. Rose squeezed my sleeve. There's an old service corridor down there, she said. A maintenance crawl. It used to run under the whole building. They sealed most of it after a fire. But it's still there. What are you saying? Rose's voice dropped. She can't stretch through concrete, she said. Not solid. She needs gaps. She needs hollow spaces. If we block the right passage, we can trap her in the crawl. I stared at her. That sounds like a guess, I said. Rose nodded. It is, she said. But it's a better guess than waiting for her to pick another door. I looked at the front door again. I thought about walking out. I thought about hearing that laugh in a hotel bathroom drain. I thought about Tyler, about anybody I could drag into this without meaning to. I looked back at Rose. "What do you need?" I asked. Rose's shoulders relaxed a fraction, like she'd been bracing for me to run. "Basement," she said. "Now, before it gets dark." I followed her. We went down the stairs, not the elevator. Rose refused the elevator like it was a mouth. The basement smelled worse in daylight, because daylight doesn't fix smells. It makes them honest. The green hallway looked dingier. The recycling posters curled at the edges. We passed the laundry room. The door was ajar. Rose pushed it shut with her foot. "Don't," she said, seeing me glance at it. We went to a heavy door with a sign that said, "Authorized personnel only." Rose pulled a key from her pocket. "You have a key?" I asked. "I've lived here a long time," she said. She unlocked the door. The room beyond was a storage area. Old paint cans, broken chairs, boxes of tiles, a smell of dust and cold metal. At the far end was another door, smaller, with a vent cut into it. Rose walked to it. She took a deep breath. Then she opened it. A narrow passage ran beyond, low ceiling, concrete walls, pipes overhead. It was the kind of place you forget exists until you need it. The air was colder in there. Rose stepped in. I hesitated. "Rose," I said, "if she's down here." "She's always down here," Rose said. That didn't help. I stepped in after her. The door shut behind us with a heavy click. Rose turned on a small flashlight. The beam cut through dust. We walked. The corridor narrowed. Pipes ran along the walls like veins. Some leaked slowly, leaving wet streaks on the concrete. Every sound we made bounced back. Rose moved with purpose, like she'd rehearsed this in her head for years. "How do you know where to go?" I whispered. Rose didn't turn. "I've watched where the damp spreads," she said. "Where the walls sweat. Where the drains talk." My skin crawled. We came to a junction where the corridor split. One side ended in a bricked-up wall. The other side continued into darkness. Rose stopped. She shined the light along the floor. There were marks in the dust, not footprints. Long, smooth drags, like something had been pulled along on a wet rope. I felt my stomach drop. Rose pointed. "Here," she said. She stepped closer to the bricked-up wall. At first it looked solid. Then I saw it. A gap where two bricks didn't meet right. A thin slit. Almost nothing. Rose put her fingers near it. She flinched and jerked her hand back. "What?" I whispered. Rose held her hand up. The tips of her fingers were wet. Not water. Something slick and dark. Rose wiped her fingers on her sweatshirt without looking. "She's using the seam," she said. "How?" Rose swallowed. "She pushes through anything hollow," she said. "Even a crack." I stared at the slit. It was too small, and yet I could smell it now. Stronger. Iron. Damp paper. Rose set her grocery bag on the floor. She pulled out items one by one. a roll of thick plastic sheeting, a tube of sealant, a putty knife, a bag of quick-set concrete mix. I stared. "You came prepared," I said. Rose's mouth twitched. "I've been prepared for years," she said. She handed me the plastic. "Hold this," she said, "against the seam. Keep it tight. Don't let it flap." I wanted to ask why. I didn't. I pressed the plastic against the brick slit. My hands shook. Rose knelt and started spreading sealant along the seam, thick and fast. The smell of chemicals hit my nose. Rose worked like she'd done it 1,000 times. As she spread the sealant, the slit went from a dark line to a shiny sealed strip. I felt a tiny rush of relief. Then the plastic in my hands tugged. Not from Rose, from the wall. Like something on the other side had grabbed it and pulled. I gasped and almost let go. Rose snapped, "Hold it." I clung to it. The plastic stretched tight. The wall made a soft scraping sound. Then the slit widened. Not the bricks moving. Something pushing between them. A pale, thin shape slid into view, like the tip of a finger. Except it wasn't a finger. It was part of a neck. Skin stretched too tight over something that shouldn't fit. It pressed against the sealant and smeared it. Rose swore. She grabbed the putty knife and shoved it hard against the seam, pushing sealant back into the gap. The pale shape jerked away. A laugh echoed through the corridor. Not loud. Close. It made my stomach flip. Rose hissed. "Now." She grabbed the bag of quick-set mix and tore it open. She poured powder into a bucket she'd brought. Then she poured in water from a bottle. The mix turned into thick paste. Rose scooped it with her hands like she didn't care about mess. She slapped it onto the seam. Concrete paste smeared over brick, covering the sealant, covering the slit. The wall shuddered. Something hit from the other side. A dull thump. Another. Dust shook loose from the ceiling. I pressed my back against the corridor wall, still holding the plastic like an idiot. Rose kept packing concrete, working fast. The thumps got harder. Then suddenly the thumping stopped. Silence. Not relief silence. Listening silence. Rose froze. Her flashlight beam shook. I could hear Rose breathing. Then I heard something else. A wet sliding sound. Not from the seam. From behind us. Down the corridor. I turned. The flashlight beam swung. In the darkness behind us, something pale moved. A long line. A neck, stretched low along the floor, sliding like a thick rope being pulled. At the end of it was her head. Her smile was wider than any face should make. Her rotten teeth showed in layers. Her eyes were fixed on Rose. Rose didn't scream. She stepped in front of me. "Back," Rose said, voice steady. The woman's head lifted. Her neck rose, bending upward. It didn't rise like a person standing. It rose like a thing being reeled up. Her head stopped level with Rose's face. They were inches apart. The woman inhaled, slow, like she was smelling Rose. Then she spoke. Her voice was soft and close. "Old," she said. Rose didn't move. The woman's smile widened, and a bit of dark drool slid from one corner of her mouth. "Stubborn," the woman said. Rose lifted her chin. "You can't have him," Rose said. The woman's eyes flicked to me. My whole body went cold. Her head tilted. "New," she whispered. Rose's hand reached back and grabbed my wrist hard. "Run," Rose said. I didn't move. The woman's neck snapped toward me. Her head shot forward. I saw teeth. I felt hot breath. Rose yanked me backwards so hard I stumbled. The woman's teeth hit the air where my throat had been. They clacked together. The sound was awful. Rose shoved me down the corridor. "Go!" she yelled. I ran. I ran like a kid, arms flailing, feet slapping concrete. Behind me I heard Rose shout, "Over here!" Then a wet impact. Then Rose's scream. It wasn't a movie scream. It was short and ugly, like pain shocked it out. I kept running. I didn't want to. My body did it anyway. The corridor blurred. I burst through the storage room door and slammed it behind me. I threw my weight against it. My hands fumbled with the lock. I twisted it. The door clicked. I stood there shaking, listening. From the other side came a soft scraping, then silence. I turned and stumbled back into the basement hallway. My head felt full of static. I looked toward the stairs. I looked toward the laundry room. I didn't know where Rose was. I didn't know if she was alive. My stomach churned. Then I heard footsteps. Fast. Real footsteps. 2 officers came down the stairs, hands on their belts. One of them saw me. "Sir," he said, "you're not supposed to be down here." My voice came out cracked. "She's down there," I said, "in the service corridor. She's Rose." The officers exchanged a look. One of them stepped closer. "Who's Rose?" "4th floor," I said. "She went in there with me." The officer frowned. "What corridor?" I pointed at the authorized door. "That," I said. "Behind that." The officer swore. He yanked on the door handle. It was locked. "Get the manager," he barked to the other officer. The other one ran up the stairs. The first officer kept his hand near his gun. He looked at me like I was a problem. "What were you doing in there?" he asked. I couldn't explain. "I was trying to stop it," I said. He stared at my face. "Stop what?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. The officer's eyes narrowed. "Sit," he said, pointing to the floor. I sat. He stood between me and the door like that mattered. The other officer came back with the manager, red-faced and breathing hard. The manager fumbled with keys. He unlocked the door. The officer drew his gun and pushed it open. "Stay here," he told me. Then he went inside. The manager hesitated. The officer snapped, "Stay out." The manager backed away. The door swung shut behind the officer. We waited. At first there was nothing. Then a sound. A muffled shout. Then silence. The manager looked at me. "What the hell is going on?" he whispered. I didn't answer. A minute passed. Then the door opened again. The officer stepped out. His face was pale. His gun hand shook. "Call it in," he said to his partner. "Now. We need more units. We need—" He stopped. His eyes widened. I followed his gaze. Behind him, in the storage room doorway, the darkness moved. Something pale slid into the light. It was her neck. It came out low, hugging the floor, then rose fast. Her head appeared behind the officer's shoulder. Her smile was full and wet. The officer spun. Too slow. Her mouth opened. She clamped onto the side of his throat. Not a neat bite. She bit and yanked. The officer screamed, high and shocked. Blood sprayed onto the concrete. The manager screamed too and stumbled backward. The second officer raised his gun. He fired. The shots cracked in the basement like fireworks. The woman's head snapped back. For a second, I thought it worked. Then she laughed. Blood ran from her lips. It didn't slow her. She lunged again. Her neck shot forward. The officer fired again. One shot hit the wall. Dust burst. The woman's head swung around like she barely felt it. She slammed into him. He fell. He hit the floor hard. She didn't climb onto him like a person. Her neck wrapped around him, quick and tight. She pulled. The officer's body dragged across the floor toward the storage room, his boots scraping. He clawed at her neck, fingers digging. His face went red. His gun clattered away. The manager bolted up the stairs. I couldn't move. The officer made a choking sound, then a wet crack. His body went slack. The woman's head lifted. She held a chunk of flesh between her teeth. She chewed. I turned and vomited on the basement floor. When I looked back, she was already moving. Her neck slid across the floor toward me. Her head stayed low. Her eyes never left mine. I scrambled backward. My hand slipped in my own vomit. I slipped, fell on my hip. The cold concrete slammed into my spine. The woman's head reached me. Her smile widened. She inhaled. And then, above us, a loud metal bang echoed. A stairwell door slamming. Footsteps pounding down. More officers. The woman's head jerked toward the sound. Her neck tightened like a muscle. She looked back at me, almost annoyed. Then she slid away. Fast. Her neck pulled back into the storage room like a whip being reeled in. The door to the authorized room swung shut behind her on its own, hard. It slammed. The lock clicked. Officers rushed down the stairs. They saw the blood, the body. They saw me on the floor. Someone yelled. Someone told me not to move. Someone grabbed my arm and hauled me up like I weighed nothing. They pulled me up the stairs. They didn't ask if I was hurt. They just wanted me out of the basement. In the lobby, chaos hit like heat. Tenants crowded. People cried. People shouted. The manager was on the phone, face wet with tears. Detective Harris pushed through the crowd, his eyes locking onto me. He grabbed my shoulder. "You," he said. "What happened?" I tried to speak. My mouth opened. My voice didn't come. Harris stared at my face. "Where's Rose Martin?" he asked. I blinked. He knew her name. "Basement," I managed. "She went in." Harris's jaw tightened. "Get units down there," he barked. An officer hesitated. "It's not safe," the officer said. Harris snapped. "Now." They moved. Harris pulled me toward the side, away from the crowd. He shoved me into a chair by the mailboxes. He crouched in front of me. His voice dropped. "Tell me the truth," he said. I looked at his face. He looked tired, yes, but he also looked scared. Not for me, for himself. He'd seen something in that storage room. He'd watched an officer get killed right in front of him. I swallowed. "It's a woman," I said. "She's wrong. She can stretch." Harris didn't laugh. He didn't roll his eyes. His lips pressed together. "How far?" he asked. I stared. "Feet," he said. "How far can she reach?" My stomach twisted. "I don't know," I said. "I saw it. Across the hall. 5 feet maybe. Maybe more." Harris's eyes flicked toward the stairwell. "And she did this?" he asked, gesturing toward the blood trailing from the basement steps. I nodded. Harris sucked in a breath through his teeth. He stood. He walked a few steps away, rubbing his face. Then he turned back. "Listen," he said. "We're evacuating the building." My chest tightened. "Good," I said. Harris held up a hand. "Not just for tonight," he said. "I mean, everybody out. Now. You included." I nodded hard. Harris's face tightened again. "But we're not leaving it like this," he said. I stared at him. "What do you mean?" Harris looked at the front door. "There's a young woman missing," he said. "From downtown. Danielle." My stomach dropped. "The flyer," I whispered. Harris nodded. "Her phone last pinged near this building," he said. "We thought she might have come here for drugs or a hookup or something. We didn't think." He stopped. He looked sick. "We have to find her," he said. My throat tightened. "She's dead," I said before I could stop myself. Harris's eyes snapped to mine. "You don't know that," he said. I pictured the mirror smile in blood. I pictured the chewing. "She doesn't keep people alive," I said. Harris stared. His jaw worked. Then he turned and started issuing orders. Officers moved through the lobby, telling tenants to grab essentials and go. People protested. People cried. People asked where they were supposed to sleep. No one had good answers. I stood up with my backpack still on my shoulders. I pushed through the crowd. Rose wasn't there. I kept searching faces. Nothing. My stomach felt heavy. I walked outside. Cold air hit my face. The sky was turning gray with evening. Police cars lined the street. Lights flashed without sirens, like the building was being warned instead of rescued. Tenants gathered on the sidewalk, clutching bags and coats. Some looked angry, most looked hollow. I stood apart, shaking. Tyler finally texted, "You okay?" "What happened?" I stared at the screen. My fingers hovered. Then I typed, "Don't come here. Please. I'll explain later." I hit send. A woman nearby was crying into her phone. "I don't care," she kept saying. "I don't care. I don't care. Just pick me up." The building loomed above us, windows like dark eyes. I kept expecting to see her face pressed against one of them. I didn't. Detective Harris came outside. He spoke to someone in a uniform. Then he looked toward me. He walked over. "You got somewhere to go?" he asked. I hesitated. "No," I said. He nodded like he expected that. "We can get you to a hotel for the night," he said. "Witness assistance. It's not fancy, but it's safe." Safe? The word sounded fake. I nodded anyway. Harris lowered his voice. "Tell me everything Rose told you," he said. My throat tightened. "She said her name was Lillian," I said. "She used to live here." Harris's face went still. He looked away for a second. Then he said, "We've got an old file. A woman, Lillian Marrow." My stomach flipped. "She was real," I said. Harris nodded. "Real enough," he said. "She murdered people in the 70s, maybe more. She was caught, died in custody. There were rumors." He looked at me. "I thought it was nonsense," he said. I swallowed. "What happens now?" I asked. Harris's eyes moved to the building. "Now," he said, "we search every inch." He started to turn away. I grabbed his sleeve. "Rose," I said. "What about Rose?" Harris's face tightened. "We'll find her," he said. He didn't sound sure. They didn't find her. Not that night. Not the next morning. They searched the basement corridor with floodlights and protective gear like they were going into a gas leak. They broke through sealed doors. They cut into walls. They found old crawl spaces packed with dust and rat droppings and forgotten junk. They found blood. They found bits of clothing. They found teeth. Not hers. They never found a body that was clearly Rose. Harris told me that on the second day, outside the hotel. I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the officers scream, and Rose's scream layered on top of it. Harris leaned against his car, looking like he'd aged 10 years. "We found her keys," he said, "her flashlight, her grocery bag." I stared at him. "And?" I asked. Harris shook his head. "No Rose," he said. I felt something in my chest crack. Harris watched me. "You did what you could," he said. I almost laughed. I didn't do anything. Rose did. I was the one who ran. Harris rubbed his forehead. "We sealed the basement corridor," he said. "We poured concrete into the crawl spaces we could reach. We shut off water to the building." He looked at me. "But we keep losing signal down there," he added. "Cameras fail. Radios cut out. Guys refuse to go further." My stomach twisted. "She's still there," I said. Harris didn't answer. He didn't have to. That afternoon, he drove me back to the building to grab more of my things. The building looked normal from the outside. That was the worst part. We went in through the front with officers posted at the door. Yellow tape stretched across the lobby. The air smelled like cleaning chemicals and old blood under it. The elevator was out of service. We took the stairs. On the 3rd floor, the hallway looked wrong. Not because of blood. They'd cleaned it. Because the carpet had been cut up in squares in front of 3A and 3D, like someone had carved out pieces of the floor. The doors to 3A and 3D were sealed with tape. Harris walked ahead of me. His hand stayed near his gun. "You got 10 minutes," he said. "Grab essentials. We're not staying long." I unlocked my door. My apartment smelled stale, like it had been closed too long. The tape drains were still there. I stared at them. Harris watched me. "You really think it's the pipes?" he said. "I don't know," I said. "But I heard her in there." Harris's face tightened. "Don't touch anything you don't have to," he said. I grabbed clothes, my laptop, a shoebox of documents. I stuffed them into a bigger bag. Harris stood in the doorway, watching the hall. Halfway through packing, I heard a sound. Not in the hallway. From the bathroom. A slow peel. Like tape lifting. I froze. Harris snapped his head toward me. "What?" he whispered. I pointed. The bathroom door was open. The taped-over sink drain was in view. The duct tape was lifting at one edge. Not because the adhesive failed. Because something underneath was pushing up. The tape bulged. A slow, steady swell. Harris stepped forward. His gun came up. "Back," he said. I backed away into the living room. The tape bulged more. Then it split. Not a tear, a clean cut, like something sharp had slid under it. A thin line opened. A smell rolled out, strong, iron, damp paper. Harris swore. The line widened. Something pale pushed through. A strip of neck. It slid out of the drain like a snake coming out of a hole. Harris fired. The shot blew a chip of porcelain off the sink. The pale strip jerked, then kept coming. Harris fired again. Another chip. The neck didn't stop. It kept sliding out, longer and longer, as if the drain led to somewhere endless. Then her head rose. She unfolded into the bathroom air. Her smile was already there. Her teeth looked worse than before, like they were breaking down into soft chunks. Her eyes fixed on Harris. He fired again. This time the bullet hit her cheek. I saw flesh burst. It didn't matter. Her grin stayed. She lunged. Her neck shot forward fast. It wrapped around Harris's arm and yanked. He stumbled, trying to keep his footing. His gun clattered to the floor. He reached for his radio. Her head snapped toward his throat. He shoved his forearm up to block. She bit into it. Hard. Her teeth sank. Harris screamed. Blood poured down his sleeve. I couldn't move. Harris kicked backward, slamming her head into the doorframe. She didn't react. Her jaws stayed locked. She shook her head. Not side to side like an animal. A sharp jerk. Flesh tore. Harris's scream changed into a raw sound. He fell to one knee. I snapped out of it. I grabbed the chair by my kitchen table and swung it. I hit her head. The chair splintered. Her head snapped away. For a second, her mouth opened. Harris yanked his arm back, blood spraying. He stumbled toward the door. "Out," he choked. I grabbed my bag. We ran. Harris shoved through the doorway, almost falling. I followed. Behind us, the woman's laugh filled my apartment. It sounded like she was pleased. She didn't chase. Not right away. Harris slammed my door shut. He fumbled with my lock with his good hand. He didn't even know my key. He just jammed the deadbolt and hoped. We stumbled down the hall. 2 officers at the far end saw us. They ran toward us. Harris tried to speak. Blood ran down his arm, dripping onto the carpet. "Call," he gasped. "Get." His voice broke. 1 officer grabbed him. Another looked at me. "What happened?" he demanded. I pointed at my apartment door. "She's in there," I said. The officer's eyes widened. He raised his radio. Then the hallway lights flickered. Once, twice. The air turned colder. The smell hit, sharp. The officer's face changed. He smelled it too. From under my apartment door, something slid. A pale line. The neck. It pressed into the gap like it was liquid. It flowed out into the hallway. Then it rose. Her head appeared, smiling. She didn't come out like a person stepping out of a room. She came out like she was being unspooled. Her neck stretched behind her, disappearing back into my apartment. She turned her head slowly, taking in the hallway. 4 people. Blood. Fear. Her eyes locked on Harris. Harris tried to back up. His legs slipped. He was weak. The officer holding him struggled. The woman moved. Her neck snapped forward. Her head shot toward Harris's throat. The officer holding Harris tried to push her away. She bit him instead. She caught his neck. Her jaws clamped. He screamed. She yanked. He fell backward, hands clawing. Blood poured. The other officer fired. The bullet hit the wall. The woman didn't stop. She tore again. The officer's scream turned into a gurgle. Harris shouted, "Shoot her!" But his voice was broken. The officer fired again. This time the shot hit her shoulder. Flesh burst. She laughed. She let go of the dying officer and turned. Her eyes went to me. My whole body locked. Her head tilted. Like she recognized me. Like she'd saved me for last. Harris shoved me. "Move," he rasped. We ran toward the stairs. The officer with the gun ran with us. Behind us, the woman's neck slid across the hallway floor, following. Not fast, patient. Like she knew we'd run out of hallway. We hit the stairwell. The officer slammed the door. He jammed his foot against it. Harris stumbled down the stairs, leaving blood on the railing. I ran after him. The officer followed, breathing hard. Behind the stairwell door, something hit. A thump. Another. Then the sound of stretching. A long pull. Like something being drawn out. The officer's eyes went wide. He started. A pale line slid through the crack at the top of the stairwell door. Not under it. Through the top. Like her neck had pushed through the frame. It looped over the door and dropped down the stairwell. Her head followed. It appeared above us, hanging. Upside down. Her smile was still a smile. Her teeth looked like they were falling apart. Saliva dripped onto the steps. The officer raised his gun and fired straight up. The shot hit her jaw. A chunk of rotten tooth flew. She didn't care. She dropped. Her head swung down toward the officer. Her mouth opened. He fired again. She caught his shoulder instead of his throat. Her teeth sank in. He screamed and fell. His gun clattered down the stairs. She pulled. His body slid up 2 steps toward her like she was towing him. Harris grabbed my arm. He dragged me down. I didn't think. I ran. We reached the lobby. Officers were there. More now. Someone saw Harris bleeding. They rushed him. I shouted, "She's in the stairs!" No one listened at first. Then the stairwell door banged open. The injured officer tumbled out. Blood soaked his uniform. He tried to crawl. Behind him, her head appeared. Her neck stretched out of the stairwell like it was pouring out. She came into the lobby like she owned it. People screamed, cops yelled. Guns came up. Someone fired. Bullets hit brick, glass shattered. The woman's head jerked once. Then she shot forward. She went for the nearest throat. Not Harris, a young officer by the mailboxes. She bit. She tore. He dropped. Blood sprayed the mailboxes. The brass plaque by the door caught droplets and gleamed. The lobby turned into a stampede. Tenants ran out. Officers shouted to clear the area. Someone tried to tackle her neck. It was a stupid move. The neck flexed. It whipped. The man flew backward into the wall and didn't get up. I stood frozen for half a second too long. Her eyes found me again. She smiled wider. Then she moved toward me. Her neck slid across the lobby floor. Fast now. Harris, half held by another officer, shoved himself forward. He grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall. He ripped it free. He aimed and sprayed. White foam blasted into her face. Her smile disappeared behind it. She hissed. Not a normal hiss. A wet, choking sound. She recoiled. Her head jerked back. Harris kept spraying. The foam covered her eyes. Her neck flailed. It whipped around, knocking over a chair, slamming into the wall. Officers fired while she was blinded. More bullets hit. This time it slowed her. Not because she felt pain, because she couldn't see. Her head swung wildly. Her teeth snapped at air. She made that laugh again, but it sounded strained. Then she retreated. Her neck slid back toward the stairwell. She pulled herself in, fast, like a tape measure snapping back. The stairwell door slammed shut. Silence hit the lobby in a heavy wave. People were still screaming outside. Inside, all I could hear was coughing and blood dripping. Harris dropped the extinguisher. He sank onto one knee. His arm hung useless. He looked at me. His eyes were glassy. "Go," he said. My throat tightened. "What about you?" I whispered. Harris shook his head slightly. "Go," he said again. "Now." An officer grabbed my elbow. He pulled me toward the front door. I didn't fight. Outside, the cold air hit like a slap. Sirens were everywhere now. More units arriving. People clustering behind police tape. Someone wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. I didn't feel it. I looked back at the building. One of the third-floor windows was open. I didn't remember it being open. In the dark space of that window, I saw something pale. A face. A smile. She was watching. Even after everything. Even with bullets in her. She was watching like she was bored. I blinked. The face was gone. They took Harris away in an ambulance. They took bodies away in vans. They finally pulled the building manager aside and asked him questions he didn't have answers for. They treated me like a witness and like a problem. I sat on the curb until my legs went numb. At some point, Tyler showed up anyway. I'd told him not to. He came because he's the kind of guy who shows up. I saw him jogging toward the tape, his face pale. I stood up. An officer tried to stop him. Tyler talked his way past with that fast, friendly voice. He reached me. "What the hell, man?" he said. "I saw this on the scanner group. People are saying..." He stopped. He looked at my face. His own face changed. "You're shaking," he said. I couldn't speak. Tyler glanced at the building. "What happened?" he asked again, softer. I swallowed. "She's real," I said. Tyler blinked. "The long neck." "Don't call her that," I snapped. Tyler's mouth opened. He shut it. He nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "Okay. Come on. You're coming with me." I hesitated. Tyler grabbed my bag. "Seriously," he said. "You're not staying here." I let him pull me away. We got into his car. The heat inside made my skin itch. Tyler drove without talking for a few minutes. Then he said, "Where do you want to go?" I stared out the window. "I don't know," I said. Tyler swallowed. "My place," he said. "You can crash. No questions." I nodded. We drove across town. Streetlights flicked by. Normal people walked dogs. A couple argued on a corner. It felt like another planet. Tyler lived in a small duplex on a quiet street. He parked, got out, and carried my bag like he was moving me out of a burning house. Inside, his place smelled like coffee and laundry detergent. He tossed a blanket on the couch. "Sit," he said. I sat. Tyler filled a glass with water and handed it to me. My hands shook so hard the water sloshed. Tyler sat across from me on a chair. He looked like he wanted to ask 1,000 questions. He didn't. He said, "You hungry?" I shook my head. Tyler nodded. "Okay," he said. "You just breathe." I stared at the glass. After a minute, I said, "Rose is gone." Tyler's face tightened. "That old lady you mentioned?" I nodded. Tyler rubbed his face. "Jesus," he whispered. I sat on his couch all night. I didn't sleep. Tyler dozed in the chair with the TV on low. He kept jolting awake and looking at me like he was checking if I'd disappeared. At some point, I got up and went to the bathroom. I stood over the sink. I stared at the drain. Tyler's drain was normal, clean. Still, I felt my skin crawl. I turned on the faucet. Water ran. I watched it swirl down. Nothing. No reflection grin. No scrape. I shut the water off. I leaned on the sink. I tried to convince myself it was over. Then I heard it. Not from the drain. From the hallway outside the bathroom. A soft scrape, like something dragging along the floor. I froze. Tyler's house was quiet. The TV murmured in the living room. Tyler's breathing. And that scrape. Slow. Patient. My stomach dropped. I stepped out of the bathroom. The hallway was dim. At the far end, near the front door, something pale moved. A thin line sliding along the baseboard. I couldn't make sense of it at first. Then it rose. A neck. Long. Too long. It lifted toward the ceiling. And her head appeared, rising into view like it was coming up through water. She smiled. Her teeth were darker now, wet with old blood. Her eyes fixed on me. I couldn't breathe. Tyler stirred in the living room, half asleep. "What's up?" he mumbled. The woman's head tilted. She turned slightly, like she'd heard him. Her neck stretched farther. It crossed the hallway. It passed the bathroom doorway. It reached toward the living room. I found my voice. "Tyler," I croaked. He blinked, confused. "What?" I stepped into the hallway, blocking the line of sight. "Get up," I said. Tyler frowned. "Dude, it's late." "What?" The woman's head slid around me. She leaned into the living room doorway. Tyler's eyes widened. His mouth opened. He didn't get a scream out. Her head shot forward. She bit into his throat. The sound was wet and final. Tyler's hands flew up. He tried to push her away. Her neck flexed. She yanked. Tyler fell sideways out of the chair, hitting the floor hard. Blood spread fast. His eyes went wide, then unfocused. He made a gurgling sound that I will hear for the rest of my life. I lunged toward him without thinking. I grabbed his shoulders. "Tyler," I gasped. His mouth opened. No words, just wet air. The woman's head hovered over him. She smiled at me. It wasn't playful. It wasn't angry. It was satisfied, like she'd proven something. I grabbed Tyler's phone from the table and fumbled for 911. My fingers couldn't hit the screen right. The woman's head moved closer. Her neck rose higher, stretching. She leaned down toward my face. Her breath smelled like old pennies. She whispered soft and close. "Rules," she said. Then she laughed. Her neck snapped back. Her head lifted. She slid away, retreating down the hall toward the front door. Her neck flowed through the gap under the door like smoke. And she was gone. Tyler twitched once. Then he was still. The 911 operator answered. I stared at Tyler's face. "I need an ambulance," I said. My voice sounded far away. I gave the address. I told her someone had been attacked. I didn't mention a woman's neck. I didn't mention a ghost. I sat on the floor next to Tyler until the sirens came. When the paramedics arrived, they did what they could, even though there was nothing to do. They looked at me with questions in their eyes. Police arrived. More questions. I gave the version that sounded possible. An intruder. A break-in. A fast attack. They wrote it down. They looked at my hands, at the blood, at my face. At some point, one of them asked, "Did you know the victim?" I swallowed. "Yes," I said. He nodded. "I'm sorry," he said. His voice sounded automatic. After they left, after they took Tyler away, after the house was taped and photographed and turned into a scene, I sat on the curb again. Different curb. Same cold, same flashing lights, same feeling that nothing official could touch what was actually happening. I thought of Rose. I thought of her grocery bag. I thought of her saying she'd been prepared for years. And I understood finally what she meant when she said you can't just walk out. It wasn't about the building. It was about being seen. Once she knew your face, once she knew your sound, she could find you. A detective I didn't know came to me later that morning. He asked questions. He wrote notes. He looked at me the way Harris had looked at me, like he was trying to decide whether I was crazy or dangerous. I answered. I kept my voice flat. Inside, something had gone numb. When he left, I stood up and walked away. No one stopped me. Where was I supposed to go? I walked until my legs hurt. I ended up at a cheap motel by the highway. I paid cash. The clerk didn't look at my face. I went into the room and locked the door. I sat on the bed. The room smelled like stale smoke and carpet cleaner. I stared at the bathroom, the sink, the tub, the drains. I didn't have duct tape. I didn't have glasses. I laughed once, short and ugly. Then I started tearing the room apart. I shoved a towel into the sink drain. I shoved another into the tub. I stuffed tissue into the overflow hole. I turned on the bathroom fan, like noise could fill space. When I was done, I sat on the floor with my back against the bed. I didn't sleep. Sometime before morning, I heard a sound. Not from the bathroom, from the ceiling. A soft scrape, like something sliding along the space above the tiles. I stared up. The scrape moved, slow, patient. Then, right above the bed, the ceiling tile shifted. Just a little. A thin line opened, and a pale neck slid through. It dangled down, longer and longer, until her head appeared. She smiled at me from above like it was normal. Like this was what she did. Her eyes were bright. Her teeth were rotten. Her neck stretched until it was almost touching the floor. She breathed in. She whispered, "Found you."